second regularly scheduled school board meeting here in our middle high school media center. As always, we'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item we have on our agenda is any board comments or committee updates. Anyone want to share?
Policy meetings was delayed due to our meeting last week. We'll be meeting here in a week or two.
Next 13th.
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 All right, moving right along. We are very fortunate to have a great group of students here and a teacher representing Net Zero and to talk about their tree planting. Folks want to come up and maybe give us a few words?
Hi, folks. I'll do a quick hello and then turn it over to them. It's my pleasure to get to advise a great group of students who care so passionately about their local environment. This is hard work and physical results. We have 4 northern red oak trees planted across the street thanks to these individuals. Through trash cleanups, the gardens that were created by this organization in front of the school, and now 4 oak trees, right? These students are committed to beautifying our community. This is a true extended learning opportunity. This is authentic learning where we get to see those skills developed in the classroom be applied within our community. I have a few thanks that are in order. My co-advisor, Catherine Bazell, Dr. Corman and Mr. Allen for their support, Mr. Riley and Mr. Chick from the facilities department. The Public Works was a huge asset to us, and this board for supporting opportunities like this. I'll turn it over to Sawyer Hill.
And just so everyone knows, that's the incomparable Mr. Silas Richards, who I think everyone probably knows, but in case they don't.
All right, I'm just gonna go over what Mr. Richards, or not go over, but like add on to it. So again, thanks to Mr. Corman for meeting with us over the summer to basically figure out where the trees were gonna go. I'd also like to thank Mr. Riley and Mr. Chick for helping and supporting us. They helped us do like site walks and communicate with the Newmarket Public Works. I'd also like to thank Karen Bloom from the Newmarket Public Works, who helped she dug a test hole, and then she ended up digging the holes that we ultimately used for the trees. I'd also like to thank Wentworth Greenhouse for working with us, and then the UNH Extension for basically advising the whole process. I'd also like to thank Mr. Richards and Ms. Bazell for supporting us, being our advisors of the club, and then Allison Burke, who's the other co-president of Net Zero. And then I'd also like to thank everyone who went to help plant the trees.
Now, those are really large trees. I was very impressed. I imagine the root balls in those are pretty large. Were they covered with burlap and metal straps? And that must have been quite the task for you guys to rustle that in. You just did it all by hand? Wow, that's amazing. They're
Come to
definitely
my
beautiful.
house.
I was very excited to see them.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like how many kids are in Net Zero, the organization? Like obviously the tree planting and some of the beautification projects. What are some of the other things that your group is working on this year?
So we do trash cleanups every month. We had pretty good turnout at the last one, not very good turnout at the first one. But I think our next project, I don't think we have it planned yet. We've done rain barrels. We have some rain barrels set up. In the past, we've looked into solar energy and composting. I think we're trying to pick those back up this year. Yeah,
And how many kids are in Net Zero?
quite a few. You know how many?
Is it a double-digit number? Okay, excellent. That's fantastic. Speaks well of the student body to be that committed to the world around you and your environment. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in composting, talk to the Town Energy and Environment Committee. That has been a major focus for them, is trying to get composting programs set up through Casella, who does the trash pickup in town.
We have one for the dump, though, don't we?
Yeah.
The dump takes compost, right?
Public Works, they have that program. Patty is officially the official compost representative here for the board.
Previous school we
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the kitchen,
Yeah.
it was all student
Oh, okay.
What were the type of trees again?
Red oak, northern red oaks.
Northern red oak. How long do they take to reach maturity? I'm trying to do the mental math as to I'll never see those things grow up or
I
not.
think
But
70 to 120 years.
yeah, it's pretty cool to plant a tree that outlives you. Right?
They will not be at maturity when these guys graduate. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And have you done any upkeep on the trees, watering them, worrying about, I think you put some composting on it, or not some composting, some mulch and stuff?
Yeah, so we mulched the trees when we planted them. We put stakes in the ground to help them stay upright because they were kind of leaning. And then we put a bag around it. I'm not entirely sure what type of bag, but it was, I think it's there to help with it freezing, the bottom freezing.
Oh, okay. Oh, it trickles out over time. Oh, that's awesome. Any other questions? No? Thank you all so much for coming in tonight. I know you probably
Super.
weren't excited necessarily to come in, but it's fantastic, and we really appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just trying to think if I was going to see those things, how big they were going to be before I.
No, none of us are.
It says 30 to 35.
Oh.
Full mature. Mike?
I mean, that's what I'm reading.
Okay. Wow.
It says update, but
I need to
I
go
don't know
back-
how valuable the
I
source
need
is
to go
because it
back
says
to do
exceeds
dendrology
100
in,
feet.
like,
so-
forestry for years, I guess.
100 feet.
It says exceeds 100 feet, so I don't know how valuable that source
Big
is.
trees.
Oh, they're huge.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to see the parking lot in 30 years.
Maybe that's with the compost.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
That's great. Thanks for looking at it. All right, moving into reports, we have Sean Vincent with the student rep reports.
All right. So I'm gonna keep it a lot shorter than I usually do today. A lot of sports are ending, and for some reason, there's a lot of dry spells going on with a lot of clubs right now. But so the boys soccer team lost to the Profile Patriots sadly last week, 1-0. We ended our season with a 9-6-2 record, but I think we had a great season overall. Girls, however, they're currently playing in their semifinals game against CCA. They just beat Woodsville 4-0 last week. I just talked to Jonathan, student body president. He said it was currently a 1-1 game right
2
now.
to 1 us.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Recent
Woo.
update came
Getting
Recent update.
updates.
All right. 2 to
I'll let
1
you know
now,
when it's over.
apparently. And then for track, the girls team finished 3rd overall. Alana Hagan finished 2nd overall. So they'll be moving on to the MOCs, which happened this Saturday. And then the boys team, sadly, they did not place, so they will not be moving on. But they had a great season. Yesterday was the winter sports meeting. Basically, if anybody doesn't know what that is, parents came and were able to listen to Mr. Hayes, and not sure if every coach, but a lot of the coaches talked about, what their sport was going to be like, what are the requirements to be able to participate in that sport. So I know a lot of coaches got to meet their future players this year. And I noticed there was an increase in swim applicants, because I know last year there was 4 last year. However, 2 graduated, so there was only supposed to be 2. And then I think it's like 5 or 6 right now.
There
So.
must have been 10 or 12 parents over there.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was a lot. There was a lot for swim. So I'm glad to see there's an increase there, because I know that just that wasn't really big a couple years ago, and then I started hearing about it last year, and I think it's starting to grow. So that's great. On to more club-like activities. So the National Honor Society just had their breast cancer walk. I heard that went great, along with the blood drive that happened the other day. I heard there was a lot more people than expected. Well, not than expected, but a week prior there wasn't many people signed up. So I'm glad a lot of people signed up for that. We're also raking leaves every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think for the first 3 weekends in November. We have a lot of signups for that, so that will be great. And then we're also doing teen tutors, and that is for grades 3 through 11. You can be in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade to be able to either meet in person or meet virtually with these students that need help. The student council student council runs it, but multiple other leadership clubs also participate in it. Just did trick or canning on the 30th. That went great. Gave a lot of nice canned goods and bread to the food pantry. And then the last thing I have here is the improv shows tomorrow from 7 to 9, so hopefully a good crowd shows up for that. I'm in it, so kind of need to ref that, but and
Are
yeah,
there
that's
any
all I have.
mimes in that show?
I wish there was mime. I might do a
That's what
mime
Sean is
skit.
doing.
Yeah.
Sean
Now I
is
might need to
miming.
do a mime skit.
That's all I have. Great, thank you very much, Sean.
I had to ask.
And Tom, over to you for superintendent report.
And I'm going to be short as well. I did want to start by just acknowledging that we are not at the elementary school tonight, and we are not having the playground dedication. As I mentioned last week, I did want to give you a report on that. We did run into some unexpected delays, and we are in the process of working through those things. You will notice that the installation is just about complete. In fact, I'm told the installation of the playground will be 100% done tomorrow. The next step on Monday, the landscapers are coming back to put in the drainage, and then next week, all the wood chips that fill in all that space that create the pad under all the playground equipment will be installed, and at that point, we can officially, play. So while I would have loved to have had it fit the November 2nd that we had done, we're going to be about a week and a half behind that. So I still anticipate work wrapping up end of next week. So we will be in touch. Patty Banfield has some great ideas for doing some kind of a dedication ceremony. Given that we're going to have a time change this weekend, it probably can't be attached to a board meeting because it would be dark, so it'll need to be either during a school day or maybe a Saturday or something. So just more to come, but we definitely want to celebrate the playground when it is completed. Second thing I wanted to mention is I told you guys about the fact that the Newmarket Historical Society is in the process of planning its the 300th anniversary, which is 2027. They're also planning the 250th of the country, which is 2026. And they are also working with us to plan a 100th anniversary celebration of this building. I met with Chris Carmichael, who's the Historical Society's sort of local school history expert. Learned a lot about about Newmarket schools in the course of that. But apparently, October 8th, 1924, the oldest part of this building was opened as Newmarket High School. So, Catherine McGilvery, Mark Levitt, myself, Andy Corman, Ms. Wands, and Chris Carmichael from the Newmarket Historical Society met to just sort of talk through what the possibilities were of what could be done. Catherine, who is the person who runs Homecoming, has already said next year's Homecoming theme is going to be tied to the 100th anniversary of the school. And they are actively planning a historical display case in our front lobby. Our historical society in Newmarket is really an amazing place. They have such an archives of photographs and information. They have all the yearbooks of our high school going back to the first one published in 1940. So anyway, it's going to be kind of cool to have that display, and so I'm really looking forward to see what Newmarket Historical Society can do to support us, but I'm also excited that our teachers are interested in kind of tagging into it. One of the things Andy Corman talked about is he's had some meetings with the program coordinator over at the Pines, and so they're going to be doing some interviews going over there because a number of longtime Newmarket residents are over there and get them to tell their stories of their time going through the Newmarket school. So it's some really fun stuff coming up. So anyway, thank you to all those people that I mentioned. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is next week on Tuesday, we have a teacher workshop day. And it is kind of an odd day to have a workshop, but I did want to remind people that that is traditionally election day, the first Tuesday after the first Monday. It's not election day in Newmarket, but we have to align our calendar with SST, and so all schools in SST are observing it on that day. I've had some people ask me, gee, why didn't you just put it on Thursday and we could have a 4-day weekend, you know, that kind of thing. But I want people to remember that it's tied to Election Day, and certainly next year it will be a major presidential election day, so it's important that we kind of keep that in our mind. And while we're on the subject of election days, I did reach out to the Secretary of State's office today to say, what the heck, when are you going to tell us when the primary is going to be? And they hemmed and hawed a little bit and said, we expect an announcement within the next week or two. So I don't know why they're waiting, but they are waiting. So please know that as soon as I know, I will tell you, and obviously we'll get information out to the community to confirm that that's the date. I still believe it's going to be January 23rd. They're just not willing to officially say that's the date. Okay, and that's all I have.
Thank you very, very much. All right, and next up, we're heading into some presentations. We're lucky enough to have Patty Wands here live in person
I am live.
for literacy pilot update and a website review of UDB documents and staff resources.
You could probably grab the microphone and just bring it over to you.
Well, yeah, I can start. So good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you. I thought I would first start with our literacy pilot update at the elementary school. So as you know, last year we have developed a literacy program review committee made up of 2 teachers from each grade level, K-5, also 2 special educators and 2 reading specialists, along with Sean Pine and myself. So now we've added to that team our literacy coach, Jackie Hansen, and of course Christina Cochran and Jess Spalding, our assistant principal as well. So we began, so from last year, oh my goodness, I'll fix that. Last school year, the committee voted on 2 resources to pilot, Magnetic View, which is under Curriculum Associates, and then My View Literacy, which is from Savas Learning Company. The teachers are currently implementing magnetic reading from Curriculum Associates. And it's going very well. It's a K-5 implementation. The majority of the teachers in every grade level is piloting it. We just couldn't say no to teachers because they asked us at the end of the year, and we were able to support that. So with magnetic reading, they have their own diagnostic assessment. They have it in both reading and mathematics. However, we're just utilizing the reading. And the reason why is because the diagnostic is heavily tied the resources and the data to the actual reading program. So we thought it made sense to implement or administer that diagnostic rather than NWEA. That's what we have typically done for many, many years here in Newmarket. We have, however, continued with NWEA and mathematics for our K-5 students because we didn't want to we're not using a math program from them. Not to say that you can't, certainly other districts do. But we thought, let's just focus on the reading. So that's what we did. So the teachers were, the feedback, immediate feedback from just administering the diagnostic assessment was, oh my gosh, the kids actually loved it. And they loved it because it's really smart in the sense of thinking about students and their experience when they're taking an assessment, such as a diagnostic assessment, which is lengthy. First, the recommendation is you don't give the assessment all in one sitting. That, we need to allow kids, it's a or an AP exam, right? It's a huge cognitive demand on you. So with that, it's about the training that we do with the teachers. We called it's getting good data. How do you get good data? Well, you get good data by setting up an assessment environment that is supporting our students. So it's not saying to a second grader, you're going to stay at that computer until you finish this test. Like, no, even our fifth graders, and so that was new for the way we administer assessments is what I learned. And so we looked at fifth grade. By the time you're all in, give the kids a full focus 20 minutes on. And then they can finish the assessment the next day. Because it typically takes about maybe 50 minutes or so to finish the assessment in reading. We had also shared with the students, and this was new as well if I compared to how we have given NEWA in the past, Curriculum Associates offers the teachers a wonderful PowerPoint by grade bands. And so it's telling the kids the why rather than saying, we're going to take our test today. It's, well, let's tell you why. And we set that up prior to the kids taking the assessment so they all knew why. And the reason why we take these assessments is the teachers are saying, I need to learn everything that you know, but I also need to learn some areas where you struggle or you have challenges or you just haven't learned yet. Because that's our job in school, right? Is to help support what you know, but also help support what you don't know in skills. And so the kids really got to have that understanding of why. We also had the students told them that they get brain breaks. So when they're working really hard during this assessment, after they answer so many questions, the computer will stop and it says to the kids, okay, you've worked so hard and you get a break. And the way we presented it to the students was a choice. Your break, you can take this, and it's basically, the little ones love the cat stackers, it's called. They literally stack cats. They loved that.
Not actual cats.
No, on the
Virtual
computer.
cats.
These little cats, I don't know, they click and drag and stack, but they loved it. But we explained it to them because you're working so hard, it's good to rest our brain. But we also recognize some kids need to get up and move. And so teachers really giving the kids a choice of you've worked really hard, maybe you want to get up and do a jump or go get a drink of water or whatever, but it really personalized for the students. So anyway, incredibly positive feedback from all of the teachers. It was so much so that they were saying, Patty, even if we don't pick magnetic, can we please just do their assessment? We love their assessment. And then what was kind of interesting, when the kids took the NWEA for math, the kids were saying to the teachers, we liked that other assessment so much better. So it was really funny, like that instantaneous data. Now with the diagnostic assessment, I'll tell you what the teachers love about it. It's the reports that the teachers get literally immediately when the students finish the assessment. And so the first report, their class report, they get to see the percentages of the students in their class who are performing on grade level, above grade level, or below grade level. And then they also get a breakdown by what we call domains. So the reading domains that kids are assessed in, for K2, it's going to start with phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, and it goes to vocabulary, comprehension, for literature, and informational text. For our students in grades 3 to 5, it starts with vocabulary. Because remember, at third grade, students are reading to learn. So what we're assessing is, but we also recognize we have students 3rd, 4th, 5th, I would even argue probably in middle school as well, that don't have all of their phonics skills sound. So it will start with vocabulary, and dependent upon the student's scale score, I think if it's above a 521, it will go right to comprehension. If it doesn't, then it goes back to actually phonics, because we need to determine where that third grader is and what support that they need in phonics. Teachers also get what's called an instructional groupings report. So for each of those domains, it will group the students in their class. So it's just so, and then it offers resources to support. So the teachers were just overwhelmed by the types of reports that they received immediately, and then the resources. Okay, what do I do? So before it was the teacher going out, trying to plan and find all these resources and make copies and whatnot, and here it was just, they could just upload that PDF, and here's a whole resource to support the students in this instructional grouping. So that has been very, very positive. We're very excited about it. So like I said, they're pleased with their diagnostic reading assessment. The student experience was positive. Last week, an exercise that Sean overled at the school, we're using the Reading League's evaluation guide. And that evaluation guide is, how do you vet a literacy program that measures two things? is the program aligned to the Common Core state standards? And is the program aligned to the science of reading? And we want big yeses on both of those. Yes, we also do go to what's called Ed Reports, and Ed Reports vets curriculum programs or resources in both reading and mathematics, and you can go on yourself to Ed Reports, and you can write in or just click on literacy or mathematics, and you can see all the programs. So both, it was important to our Literacy Program Review Committee, both programs that we're piloting have a full green circle, a full go for both Magnetic and MyView Literacy in terms of they're fully aligned to the Common Core state standards and fully aligned to the science of reading. So the teachers did an exercise of going through the evaluation guide and magnetic reading and giving their comments with regard to their instruction and what they're seeing. What's hard when you're in a pilot is, yes, you had training, but when you're in a full implementation, I think the training is deeper as well. So I give so much credit to all of the teachers because they are working so hard and they're just trying to use all the resources at their fingertips so they can, determine like, oh, do I like this one or not? Because with magnetic reading, the magnetic reading part is the foundational reading. And then we also bought the suite of the more on the literature side, more on the comprehension and the writing and the spelling side. So it's a lot of resources. And so we've just been saying to teachers, take it at your own pace, or maybe within the grade level, so-and-so is going to try the writing component, so-and-so is really going to dig into the vocabulary, and then share with each other, how your kids are responding to it. But the reading part was at the forefront of what we're all consistently implementing. So far, so good. So that data that was collected, we have a Literacy Program Review Committee meeting next week. And we'll start to kind of curate and bring in all that data to begin the analyzing and collecting of data so we can compare that to the next pilot come January. And speaking of the next pilot, Sean and I, and Jackie and Jess and Christina were meeting with MyView Literacy to start that planning of the next pilot. So we will definitely take advantage of our January, top of my head, 16th, I think, our PD day in January. I think it's the 16th, yes. Where the teachers will be trained in the MyView Literacy. And then the teachers will determine, when actually they're going to start and what unit they'll start with, given where they're coming off of. So that's my literacy update. I know I gave a lot of information. Any quick questions? A lot to process.
I had a question about the,
Go ahead.
Sure.
about the, you said it provided a diagnostic assessment. Is it replacing the NEWA? Is that
So
what you
yeah,
said
so what
for
we
this
did
year
for this
them?
pilot, because it made sense to us to use magnetics assessment because it was tied to the program and the resources. And so that was a collective decision. So we did not use the reading NEWA because we don't want to overtest our students. Instead, we used the magnetic reading. And it was a way to kind of test it out. What did we think about it? But we kept the NWEA assessment for mathematics.
Now, will that affect when you compare data from?
That's a really good question. Is it apples to apples? No. But what the teachers liked when they learned the difference with the assessment from magnetic reading compared to NEWA, magnetic reading is a criterion referenced assessment. So what that means is every question that the student answers is measured against a grade level standard. So when we say, oh, a student is on, above, or below grade level, it's against the grade level standard. It's actually what does a student know and able to do against the grade level standard. So it's really, that's what the teachers loved, is this specific information. NEWA is a normed, and again, I can still, from magnetic, let me just go back, I could click normed reference and I can get percentiles as well. NWEA is normed reference. So what that means is when you get your child scored, let's say they're in the 50th percentile, we always use that's like dead average, right, of where they are compared to all, say, the fourth graders across the country if your child's 50th percentile in reading. And we like to say, well, they're average. What we've learned with criterion referenced assessments is, well, you could be 50th percentile, but you haven't met all the standards in your grade level. We might be calling you average, but really are you average when there are all these standards that you have not met proficiency? So that's what I think the teachers really liked, is how it just zeroed in on what do the kids know? And then also it's a very it aligns to asset-based philosophy, which is building on what students know rather than what they don't know. So what I mean by that is when you scroll through a children's report and you scroll down, it's going to let the teacher know all the standards that where the student is, that they've met proficiency. So maybe it's a third grade standard, and there might be some third grade standards the student met proficiency, but there might also be second grade. So it's going to say to the teacher, well, this is what they can do, this second grade standard. So a teacher can build off of that. That's what we call like an asset base. Like, let's build off of what kids can do rather than what they can't do.
So,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate the criterion, as opposed to the like
Normed.
right?
Yeah.
Like, the norm is just like
Yeah.
if the average is not meeting the standard, but we're average, like you feel good, but you're not, right? Like the
Yeah.
my
Bill, would you mind?
Oh,
just leaving?
sorry.
Thank you very much.
so my question is about apples to apples comparison of the two programs. So
You mean
how-
my view and the
my-
magnetic?
Yeah, magnetic reading. Like,
Mhm.
how are we ensuring? Like, I don't. I guess I can't conceptualize how we are and against what criteria we are basing like the
It's-
assessment of one vice the other.
Yeah, so MyView doesn't have a diagnostic assessment, so we're going to continue with the magnetic assessment. You know, when we benchmark kids 3 times a year, there'll be a winter and a spring. So with MyView, what we will use to really compare the reading programs is the evaluation guide by the Reading League, because that is what's vetting, aligning to the standards and aligning to the science of reading. Also, we want to look at resources. So, you know, is Magnetic offering enough of resources to differentiate our instruction, to help our students? How do we know, how do we support teachers with scaffolding their instruction? So like maybe teaching the grade level standard, but I'm going to scaffold, meaning I'm going to give students who I know are 1 year grade level below that reading to help support them so that they're successful and can meet them where they are in their reading.
So
So we're going to be putting that all on the table.
but is it they're all testing magnetic now and then they're going to test?
January. Yep. Well, not
there-
test. So what you mean implementing the reading program?
Yeah.
So we're using magnetic reading right now program.
Right.
And we're going to stop around like before the holidays.
Is that 100% of the teachers?
Everyone but 2.
I guess
But they're still doing the same assessment?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's too late now because it's in process. I guess my concern is that I guess what are the criteria against which one is being, is it just reading improvement? Or I guess I'm trying to figure out what the criteria you're using to determine this one's better than that one.
From the Reading League evaluation guide, and I'm happy to, I can email that to you. It breaks it down in terms of like, it's trying to determine if there are red flags in a reading program.
Okay.
So, because we want to make sure they're aligned to the science of reading. Well, somebody can say they're aligned to it, but the Reading League has broken down the steps for phonemic awareness. You know, here is what a program K-5 needs to have if they say they're aligned to the science of reading.
Okay.
So that's what the Reading League is doing, and that's the work that teachers are doing because they're teaching it. And so that's very important. And then it's the Literacy Program Review Committee, they're representing their grade levels, so that's like their constituents. So they're getting the feedback from from the teachers in their grade level and bringing it to the committee. And the same with the reading specialists, you know, representing interventionists.
So, I mean, that's fantastic, right? Because someone could just put science of reading on the label.
Yeah,
And
we're
like-
actually going through the exercise. Well, oh, here's the evidence that supports, yes, it's aligned, because it is explicit in its instruction.
Will there be any objective measures of this curricula over these months advanced like reading capabilities by X percent versus
No,
this
I
one
don't
by
think,
5%?
and I would just, again, this is just my own personal feeling, I don't think it's fair to do that to either reading program because like MyView Literacy, I don't have like a diagnostics from magnetic, and I just don't think it's fair. I have to go from, I feel like the teachers are going from, they're teaching it. You know what I mean? Like what is their comfort level from where they are, from grades 3 to 5 teachers who haven't had anything to implement, but K2 did have a program,
Yeah.
but it was not fully aligned to the standards or fully aligned to the science of reading.
Again, like
So-
the ship has sailed, but like, and I totally respect that we want to hear like the teacher's perspective.
Yeah, because
Having
they're
some
implementing it.
Objective measure of like this one is better at helping kids read
Yeah.
would have.
Well, that's what
helped.
that's the goal of the Reading League evaluation guide.
Okay.
I mean, because that has been vetted. I mean, the Reading League is like just renowned,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of literacy and instruction
Okay.
and how you vet that in Ed Reports. What Ed Reports has done, and you can go on yourself you can click, let's say you go to magnetic reading under Ed Reports, and you can click on the standards, and then they have a new one, Science of Reading. And then it will take each measure of the science and reading and vet the program. And just so you know, for Ed Reports, it takes a full year, if not longer, for them to vet a program. So it's not just like willy-nilly, oh yeah, this looks great. Like they are literally going page by page, looking every assessment to validate, you know, if you get that full green circle, you know, and then it gives the details why they validated it. It's very comprehensive
Okay.
going
Thank
through
you.
there. Yeah.
You say from a parent's perspective, the report that we received on our children
For reading?
reading
Yes.
was so detailed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I personally feel. And I've been, as a classroom teacher, I'm very familiar with the NWEA. I implemented as a teacher many years ago, teaching middle school. And it's interesting because a lot of us always felt like we never got enough. You know, it never gave us the resources. It gave us information, but then we had to go out and find our own resources. And that's what we're hearing from our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers. That's good to know from the parent perspective that's great. Thank you. Yes.
Amy asked a few of my questions, but I did have one or two. So the brain break is built into the software?
Yes,
Is
for
that
the
an
assessment.
adaptive program?
It is adaptive, yes, just like NWEA, meaning so when students answer a question correctly, it gets a little harder. When they answer it incorrectly, it's going to go down a little bit. Because again, we're trying to find what I call the sweet spot, the instructional level. Because there's a personalized instruction that's built into every student's assessment. So when they finish the assessment, they can get right on to their personalized instruction. And so we have been purchasing that for NWEA. It's called Exact Path. So currently we have it for math, and that's the Exact Path Reading NWEA. Magnetic has their own built into the program.
The reason I ask is
Yeah.
I know for me, at the start of each day, I have to kind of get going. So to me, having done part of an assessment, the kids would be primed a little bit. So I'm wondering if in the second half of the assessment, there's some kind of review of what they did to get them back up, thinking of the level that they were thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. The assessment will also, and NWEA did this as well, flag. There's the whole metrics of if a student answers too quickly, goes too quickly, it will red flag the student, which it informs the teacher of, I'm not sure this data is valid given the red flag. A yellow flag is a potential. It could be invalid given how the student guessed really quickly. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other questions for the reading? Okay. I did want to, Andrew, you had a question the last time I was here. You wanted to know what are the AP course offerings at the high school, and then how many students are in each class. So I have that I can just read for you.
Yeah.
Sure. So we'll start, I'm just going alphabetically. AP Biology, there are 3 students. AP Chemistry, 10 students. AP Environmental Science, 16 students. AP US History, 14 students. AP Calculus AB, 9 students. AP Statistics, 9 students. And AP Literature and Composition, 23 students.
Do you have any idea how those have changed over time?
Oh, I can get that data for you if you'd like me to. Sure. I can just like do a little, yeah.
I just want to make sure that, I know some of these AP classes are newer.
Uh-huh.
When I have them on the board, I just want to make sure that they're including more students.
Yeah.
As opposed to just that typical average.
Yep.
And
Great
that's
question.
what I'm
Yeah, I
asking.
could certainly get some data over time. That's certainly easy to
And
do.
my quick reaction to those numbers is that's a lot of kids doing AP courses in a
Yes.
very small
Yeah.
student population.
And a
Um,
wide variety of offerings. Yeah, I think it's impressive.
I know that AP Biology, which I took last year, had about Oh yeah. Had about like 20, and then it dropped down to 3 this year. I know AP Environmental Science and Chemistry was added this year. I know Chemistry was added this year. AP Environmental Science wasn't. I know AP Environmental Science went up, but I know like obviously from the clear number that AP Bio is just decreasing dramatically to a point. Like, I guess Chemistry, I wouldn't even say brought in more students because I know a lot of students who are taking chemistry took bio last year, but I just want to point that out there that like because we were asking like past numbers, and I know that bio decreased by maybe like
I think bio is a
17
prereq for
students.
chemistry, isn't it?
No, you
It's
can
not?
take.
Oh, okay.
You can just take it.
I wonder, just thinking out loud, if the numbers in AP Bio have something to do with the number of people who are thinking of a career in that vein might prefer the biomedical program at SST instead.
It could be that it happened to be that kids from the various grade levels all took it the same year.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean-
yeah.
Because my
True.
year was it was mainly juniors. It was pretty much, I would say 90% juniors, and now we're all taking either AP Environmental Science or
Oh.
AP Chemistry. So
Hmm.
now
Okay.
it's just juniors currently, and I guess no one's
And-
interested in that.
Okay.
topic.
I just, the reason I asked, and this might be swaying out of my lane a little bit, but I just know, like, with our discussions that we had with the budget, and like with talking about like making sure that we have a personal education for every student, that like that SST and AP and all is complementing each other as opposed to competing against one another. And this is much more knowledgeable on your level and the school level, but I just want to make sure that when we look at what our big picture thing, that it's all working together.
But I do think one of the challenges in a small school environment is you have to have courses that kids can aspire to that are the higher end of our curriculum sequence.
Yeah.
But if you don't offer them regularly, it interferes with kids' ability to get there. So, so we have to think very carefully about what's the cycle of how they're offered and when they're offered to make sure that the maximum number of kids can access them and take advantage of them.
Right.
And I think that's, I mean, just looking at enrollments at the high school, like last year's senior class had 58 kids in it. This year's senior class has 75 kids in it. And it's just very different numbers. So in any given year, you can have a very different population of kids.
So Dan's comment, sorry, we're sharing a mic over here. Dan's comment brought me to exactly what you said, right? Like, is there like a competition in the marketplace for learners, and we're like paying to send our learners away to SST? And it does, like I know we talked about it, and I realize this is a much broader conversation than just how many kids are in AP, how many students are in AP classes, but how we might cooperate with friends and other school districts to find ways that we could maybe, without the cost of SST, get personalized offerings and continue to, without maybe running classes with 2 people.
Yep. So the next part, I wanted to show
Yeah,
you.
before we move into the next part, I heard
Tried.
through the grapevine, sorry, be very quick,
No, that's okay.
that Newmarket won 2-1 over, I'm not sure who they were playing, but congrats to the girls.
Oh, they
Christian.
won!
Christian, they
Yay.
won, so congrats to them.
Congrats! Yay!
Mules playing Sunday then, right?
Awesome.
Yes.
Playing Sunday. And if someone's here for a school assignment, like say Zach, and they want to leave, feel free. You don't have to leave. Yeah.
Yep.
No, they
One
tied
tie.
one.
Oh,
They
one
tied
tie.
One
But they didn't
tie.
get defeated. They're still undefeated.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's
undefeated,
undefeated.
yes.
Yeah, that's very
Yes.
specific, narrow
Bye.
definition of the term. True though.
You don't
Okay.
have to leave.
Should I bring the microphone with me over there?
Yeah, you
You're
probably
welcome
wouldn't,
to.
because
Should I?
we're not,
Okay.
they won't hear you on
Okay.
the screen.
All right.
So that was for civics.
I assume so. We usually let them go after an hour, so we torture so many. for so long.
You understand.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
I
You don't
just
have to argue,
wanted.
actually.
I just wanted to share with you some new updates on the website that we're really excited about. And I have to give complete credit to Debbie Jankowski, our tech coordinator and integrator in the classroom. She's just been so amazing. She and I working together on the website, but it's all Debbie behind the scenes, and it's a lot of work. So the first thing I just want to share with you is those UBD stage 1 documents that we've spent a lot of last year and PD time for teachers to develop those, to start looking at that. So I wanted to share, and if you're looking at home, if you just go to SAU 31 and you click down on curriculum, it's going to bring you here. And on the left, you're going to click curriculum again. And you can see that we have all of our content areas in red. So what I thought I would do is click on one, and we are going to go to ELA. And you can see all the grade levels are here and the units that they teach. And if I click on grade 7, story elements, what a parent can see from home is, oh, what will the standards be that my student is going to learn in this unit? I can see that this is in the fall. It's typically one of the first units an ELA teacher will teach. And the title is Story Elements, and it's a 7th grade language arts class. And on the left, you're going to see the established goals, which are the standards. And here they are aligned. The teacher has the Common Core State Standards and what it is. At the top, you'll see those transferable skills. What will students understand? What are those essential questions that the kids are trying to answer throughout this unit? They're on the right. That's their making meaning. And then lastly is the acquisition. What will kids know? And then what will they be able to do? Set really clear. And you can scroll down here. So that's our stage 1. So that's an example of a 7th grade class. And if I go back here, I can also take you to, I'm just going to click the back arrow here. We could also go to a grade 11 if you wanted to see just the difference. Oh, actually, that was still ELA. I'm going to take you to science. Let's go to, I'm going to scroll down to physical science so we can see a high school, anatomy, physical science, and then there's one on atoms and the elements here. So this is a 3 to 4 week unit, atoms and the elements. And you can see the competencies addressed on the left, the next gen science standards, some 21st century skills on the left as well that the teacher had. And then the template is the same. What are these transferable skills? How are kids going to make meaning through understandings, asking questions, what they know, what they be able to do? So we are still a work in progress. We're almost done, but we are really excited at the volume and the number of UBD units. Now, you won't see stage 2 and 3 because that's the actual lesson plan. We call those living documents. You know, every year you're going to tweak your lesson plan a little bit, and you certainly wouldn't give that to parents. And stage 3 is like those assessments, right? So the formative assessment and then the summative assessments. So that's the UBD work that the teachers have been very hard at work on. And then I also wanted to show you, I'm going to just kind of go, I'm going to go back to the home page, which I just click on Newmarket. Excuse me. And because I'm a staff member, I can access this, but our general public won't. But I just want to show you what we've done for the teachers. So for teachers, it used to be when you clicked on staff, there were at least 12 to 15 different buttons. And feedback that we received was, this is so overwhelming. I can't even find what I'm looking for. So we said, okay, let's go with this less is more approach, and let's organize it. So we have 3 different buttons for teachers. Am I looking for my staff resources, the Joint Loss and Management Committee, because we have reps on that committee. And then class link is something that all teachers just want to get to immediately. So when I go to staff resources, I'm now presented with just 5 buttons. If I want to do a help desk ticket, I'm just going to go right here, either for technology or facilities. That's my work order. If I'm looking for student information, I'm going to click here. I can go for advisory. They use enriching students there to take attendance. Infinite Campus they can access, and then information on SST. And then the staff information and forms is a little bit longer, but this is where we've kind of just grouped everything for them. Frontline is what we use for their professional development. That's where they write their goals and they enter activities if they're taking graduate coursework or just conferences or workshops. If they want to access the New Hampshire DOE, look at their certification, or they were just recertified, they have to pay the fee. All of that, we've tried to make it really accessible for our teachers. And then under human resources and payroll, again, we have more information here for them. And then the last one I'm excited about, so the mentoring is the teacher resources. Okay, I'm a teacher. So the first thing is the UBD templates. Let's say they're like, where do I find those templates again? I just created a new unit. Oh, here it is, right here. And they can just take it right from there. We also have the induction through mentoring program. So if teachers want to look at, we put the whole program through here. So they have full access to that. And then lastly, we wanted to give some instructional resources for teachers. These are just great, and they're all live links. So maybe I want to look at, let's see. Maybe I want to look at designing learning environments. Oh, I'm going to have to talk to Debbie that it's not a live link. Okay, we're going to have to they should be live links. This is why we check things. But anyway, it would bring me right to that. I don't know why it's not working, but. And then lastly is self-care for teachers, and that's this one right here. And there's some really great resources. These do work, so that's good. There's a headspace for educators. There's some really great self-assessments educators can take to really assess their own, mental health and where they are and what they need, and just great tips for teachers as well in the classroom. So that is the updates on our website that I wanted to share with you. And that's it. Any questions?
I will say, well, I just started using Headspace. It's pretty great.
Really good.
Yeah, through work you can get it. Obviously, but I work on websites all day, and this is just really very simple. This way set up is very elegant, very straightforward.
Yeah.
For someone who struggles to find links and has 1,000 bookmarks, yeah, that's great. Really great.
A feedback sometimes I'll give to teachers, and I received it myself as a classroom teacher. We get overwhelmed when there's too much text on a page. And it's the same with websites. It's how we turn kids off if we're using a size 10 font. And I don't know, Sean, what you feel if you get an assessment, size 10 font, and it's just lots of words. Already you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Right? It's totally true. And so I learned, when I could use color, Todd knows I'm very colorful in how I organize my office, but it's there's a lot to be said for that, and adults are no different. So if or parents are no different. So if we're gonna have a website, let's make it user friendly. Less is more, and how do I find what I need to find? So that was our goal anyway. Less is more. Okay.
Yeah, was a few years ago. It was awesome.
Great. Thanks.
Do you have any help with the November 7th PD Day on the calendar there? Thanksgiving's going to be there.
Ooh, yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
There's a suggestion
Yeah, it's not
tab
there.
you can actually.
Okay. I think I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you very, very much. All right. Moving along, we have Jenna Mellon, who's always live. We have quarterly reports and tax rates, as well as the 24-25 proposed budget presentations.
Yep. So I think the quarterlies are on first, right?
Yep.
Okay. So these are the first financials that we've been able to prepare from our new financial system. So with that, there were a couple of small enhancements we were able to make. For example, we expanded our general ledger accounts so that we're able to give you a little bit more detail about certain things than we had in the past. So it looks a little bit different, but the format is basically the same as what you've worked with before and what you're used to. Once again, we've kind of broken this down into expenditures and revenues. Those are pretty much where we live and breathe during the year. We try and give you detail for any significant variances on the statements that are towards the back. So, it's early in the year. I'm sure you've heard me say this before. The first quarter is always, it's good to know, but things often change in the 3 quarters that remain in the year. At this point, we have a variance from our budgeted amounts, which is a positive variance. We have about $1.7 million that has not yet been allocated. And when I say allocated, that includes if pay encumbrances that we know we're going to pay out. So that's not an unexpected figure. There are some things that we legitimately can't encumber this early in the year, and I do expect that number to change as the year goes on. Revenues, we have estimated our revenues based on our best estimates as of this time. Again, we do expect variances to increase throughout the year as revenues come in and are received. These are just estimates that we have at this point. And again, there are notes further on with that. Our revenues are broken into 3 categories. Local revenues are the things that are raised and appropriated locally here. A lot of that comes from our tax appropriation, our property taxes. Local food service revenues are different types, tuition payments, that kind of thing. State revenues obviously come from the state. We have several different kinds of things that come from the state: special education aid, our adequacy aid, our state education tax, which although it's raised and appropriated locally, it's considered a state tax. And finally, we have our federal revenues. Those are what we call the grants. Those always have a net impact on our budget of 0 because whatever you expend on the grant, you receive an equal and offsetting revenue for that. So they don't have an impact on, generally speaking, on taxation or on our bottom line. So the next thing, our food service summary, it's very brief this year. You may remember in the past we had multiple lines for salaries, and when we outsource, we're down to about 3 lines of things because all of the labor, the cost is rolled into that one number. So we're tracking our expenditures right now. Our expenditures and our anticipated expenditures in the program align with what we've requested for the budget. Just as a reminder, at the end of fiscal year 23, last June, we ended with a positive fund balance, which is something we hadn't done in a very long time. It was 100% due to the COVID-related meal waivers that allowed free meals for students. We cannot use that that balance to offset taxes in the general fund, but we can retain it and use it to offset any negative operating variances that we might have down the road, which is what we plan to do. Kind of summary preview of coming attractions again early in the year. The state announced in late September that they're opening up another round of SAFE grant opportunity. We applied for 4 projects under phase 1 and phase 2. We were approved for 3 of the 4. All 3 are in the process of 2 of them are done. 1 is in the process of being worked on. And we do anticipate that we're going to try and apply under this grant again, for the windows at NES on the safety parameters. That said, we have been advised that schools who have not been awarded anything under SAFE grants do have priority. So it's not a slam dunk that we would get this award, in which case we probably, as we start talking about warrant articles and planning for warrant articles and looking at our capital plan, one of the first items in year 1 is the remainder of those windows. So we may want to have a backup plan. I mentioned this because the maximum award amount is $100,000. The cost of the remaining windows is closer to $300,000. So if we were to be awarded that money, we would need to supplement it from capital reserve because it has not been budgeted. So it doesn't mean we have to accept it, but I figured at least we'll apply for it if we're awarded it, and then at least gives us a chance to discuss it. But again, we weren't expecting this to come. I hate to leave anything on the table, but we don't have the remaining balance sitting around to do it except in the capital reserves. The NES playground renovation, I'll just touch on that. Todd did, kind of gave you the summary of where that's at. one thing that we have all have a lot to be proud of with that project is it's about a $650,000 project, and of that, 70% came from generous donations from our PTA and grant funding. So only 30% of that project is going to be paid for ultimately out of taxation, or what funding that we have available. The financial software upgrade, again, another thing to be proud of. That typically can cost up to $80,000 to do that. Apart from the labor that we've already paid for and we have in our district, no money was raised from taxation to make that conversion, which is a pretty significant accomplishment with a small team. So I'll pause there before we go into the actual statements. And does anyone have any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So the first statement we have is the expenditures by category of the general fund. We've been able to granularize, if I can say that correctly, our salaries a little bit further with our new system. So we're able to kind of more precisely budget in the different groupings of employees that we have. Summary is we have $1.7 million that is unbudgeted. Of that $1.7 million, $466,000 is salaries that are unexpended. $115,000 are benefits that are unexpended, and $1.1 million is the operations type expenditures that are unexpended at this time. Again, we do expect those variances to change throughout the year. On the next page, you've all had it available to you, and I'm sure you'll ask me any questions if you have any, but those are kind of the explanations of the significant variances that were shown in that first one. Food service expenditures, we're pretty much right on track. We have a very small variance of just over $1,000 based on what we expect to spend. That doesn't mean that it won't change. In fact, last year we went over our budget, but we also got an increased number of revenues that offset that. So if you sell more, you make more, kind of thing. But right now we're tracking pretty well. Our revenues, and again, this report predated the tax rate setting that happened just days ago. So the district assessment is kind of a plug figure. Basically, that's what's left over after you get all your revenues in and things. So in the next report, this number will change for you because we now have a finalized tax rate, and I can better estimate that. And again, there's a sheet after that that kind of talks about the main variances, which I'm sure you'll ask about if you have questions in the local, state, federal, and in the food service revenues. And with that, anyone have any questions about the quarterlies? Okay.
I think you wowed them, Janet.
What's that?
You wowed them.
Oh, I wowed them. That's good to know. Good to know.
I can't imagine your office right now between getting this together and the budget. Thank you so much.
I will tell you, it's been a learning curve. It's going to be great, but just getting information out of the system on a system you haven't worked on before has, it's taken a little bit of extra time to figure things out, but we're trying to be really methodical, and as we figure things out, trying to document them so we don't have to figure them out again. But I do anticipate we're going to gain some significant efficiencies as we get more comfortable with the system. We're looking to do that. And then the next thing is the budget, right, on the agenda. I don't have the copy.
Actually, it was just quick on the tax rate.
Oh.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
You created that memo. Yep.
We mentioned that at the last meeting that the rates had come out. I don't have that in front of me, but I believe that our total estimated impact was $3.35 between the teachers' CBA and our operating article, both of which passed. Our actual increase wound up being $2 from last year, which is $1.35 lower than what we estimated. Again, we caution everybody about the estimation of tax rate so far in advance because it relies on some assumptions that very rarely hold true. It relies on the fact that we expend every penny, that all our revenues come in precisely as received, and that there are no changes in state funding, which in my time I cannot recall ever that being a thing. So, so that's where we're at. with regard to the tax rate.
And I did want to just mention, because I have had a couple of questions from the community just trying to get me to explain how is it we could have a 3.9% appropriations budget for 23-24 and yet see a total of about a 10% increase in school-related taxes. And just for the community's benefit, because I know we've talked about this at the board table, it really is about the shifting of the tax burden from the state to the local level. I think it's important to keep in mind that in the 22-23 budget, we had over $3 million in adequacy aid. And we were happy when we got the actual number that it was more than we thought it was going to be, but it was still 460,000 less
Right.
for 23-24 than we were supposed to have gotten, or had they left it alone, I should say,
Right.
not what we were supposed
Right.
to get.
Right.
So we had 3 million in adequacy aid in 22-23 and more like 2.6 million for this year. So it's more than we thought, but less than we had experienced. So in a
Right.
sense, that's shifting over $460,000 in burden onto the local taxpayer. And then the other piece, which
The retirement.
is the
one-time retirement of,
yeah, and actually the
of
one-time retirement.
$120,000 that was a one-time on top of that. So
So yes, which was another unexpected revenue that sort of now we have to calculate that in. The third piece is the shifting of the local property tax, because I know the swept tax rates, often people, you talk about it's a statewide property tax, but the fact is
raised
it's
right here.
authorized by the state, it's collected locally. That went up, in fact, that went up by 38.7% for Newmarket. In other words, Newmarket taxpayers are paying about $560,000 more dollars in swept for this year. So in a sense, what has happened is the state shifted more than $1 million onto Newmarket. So when you take a look at that tax rate, which I will be the first to acknowledge that that's more than is desirable, but you got to keep in mind that $1 million of that was just a shifted responsibility from the state onto the locals, and it's about 4 to 5% of that increase. So had that not happened, we'd be looking at the tax rate would be very different. It would probably be more like a 5% increase. Still more than the appropriations side.
Right.
But I just think it's important that people keep that in mind. We actually, when we built the 23-24 budget, we were very cognizant of the tax impact. The trouble is, as Jenna very carefully explained, it's a moving target. All we can do is take our best guess. And I think it's important as we head into developing and talking about the 24-25 budget, keep in mind that some of the same variables continue to exist.
Yeah.
The state funding side of the equation, I think, is a little more stable because it's a biennial budget, and we can be much more confident that the adequacy aid will remain roughly the same. Swept can be a little bit of a moving target, and obviously other revenues that we don't know what we're going to get. They all play a role, and in the end, we're being asked to project basically 16 months down the road for what is going to happen. And I mean, in some ways, when Jen and I saw those numbers about what came in, we were relieved because it's a lot better than the worst case scenario that we had presented in it last year. But it's still a burden on the local taxpayers, and I don't want anybody to think that we don't see it and recognize it and want to do what we can to mitigate it.
And as we look at this next budget, it's probably a good segue as we start looking at the budget that we're proposing. Just one factor. Last year, we received over $300,000 of unanticipated special education aid, which we'd never anticipated. There's a very formula that I asked Erica to explain to you last time, but it's arbitrary at the state what percentage of that amount they're going to reimburse last year. Last year it was 82%. We've already been told to brace that it's going to be closer to 70% this year. So when you have those kinds of fluctuations in, without a whole lot of say in how you get that money or what they're basing it on, they have a formula, but it isn't always easy to project how that's going to impact us here.
So, as part of segue to the budget, because I feel like I agree, right? We could say like, well, it could have been worse, could have been $3, but the average person out there, like, that's not what they want to hear, right? Like that, and I agree. The way funkiness of funding for education in the state, like creates this like lack of ability at the local level to like even be able to calculate what the revenues are going to be from the state. But again, to the average person, they don't care about the funkiness of the weird ways the state calculates. What they care about is like, okay, like all of a sudden I owe $800 more, which is a significant percentage of my annual revenue on my house. So when I look at the next year budget, like on the heels of this, like we don't have people here now, right? But like,
Right.
I think another year of feeling like this, like we have a very different picture out here, and like,
Yeah.
and maybe even up here,
Yeah.
based on people who have run. Just want to like
Yeah.
caution us that like as much as like it's hard to be really tight on budgeting, it feels like that's the direction we need to head currently, from my perspective.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think the reality is every year is it's not going to get better or easier, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. Unless something drastically changes with, you know, paying building aid retroactively or something.
Yeah.
That ship
Which
has
is
sailed
which is
so
not
long.
gonna, which is
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Thank you.
Oh, don't kill it.
Sorry.
Too late.
Where's we get net zero back in here.
Yeah.
We got enough yeah, I mean, the reality is it's going to get tougher and tougher. We're going to start making hard decisions. I mean, we have Todd and the admin team talked about kind of restructuring the way teachers are used so that we can maybe, you know, take advantage of some retirements to reduce some expenditures. Hopefully we can bring some revenues in from looking at other options, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, I don't think like there's been loose budgeting. I don't want to
Oh, no, of course
any way
not.
say there's
Yeah.
been like, you know, like fast and loose money. I just think that probably going to be more and more of a call to like, okay, the state does its thing, but what can you control? What can we control in order to?
And that, I mean, the last year and this year, and I think the year before, if I recall, it's been, what can we do to keep what we've got and stay open?
Right.
And that's the increase we're seeing.
Right. Well, and again, to your point, it doesn't make anybody feel any better, but remember, last year at this time, we showed you that stunning chart of our anticipated growth, right? So the tax rate was kind of doing this for a number of years, and then last year it did this, and now it's going back up. But had the line been more normalized, it wouldn't feel like such a big increase this year. Again, it's beyond our control, you know, and it is an increase because things were artificially lower last year at this time. So we are definitely mindful of that. We've budgeted with that in mind as one of our primary, goals. We also are subject to the same inflationary environments that everybody's seeing out there, you know, with health insurance going up 10% and for the same basic stuff. So we try to be really mindful of that, and we're deeply appreciative of the community and the support and with the budgeting that we do get.
Yeah,
We-
I think Bill's comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, was really directed at the board members to realize that we're going to have to start making some painful decisions.
I'm
You know,
not saying right now, but I'm saying like sooner or later, painful decisions have to get made, or
Mhm.
like
yeah,
they'll
unless something changes. Yeah.
thrust upon us, or like maybe there will be a group of here that is more likely to make draconian difficult decisions.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I would personally, as a board member, really appreciate it if people would come to us more often in these
Absolutely.
seats out here
Yes.
with, their opinions about what the right trade-offs to make
Yeah.
are. It's, we can't run the school district based on Facebook. I'm sorry, we can't. That's not how any of this works.
No.
And I have seen some people very rationally say to people who are upset, you do have opportunities, you do have a voice, and you have more of a voice than just showing up once a year to vote yay or nay. We have 3 unfilled seats on the budget committee at the start of this year. Those have thankfully been filled by people who stepped up. But, there is an opportunity for people who want to be part of this process, who want to even if you only want to understand it better, there's lots of opportunities to participate. And you know, again, we can't make decisions based on what we read on Facebook. It's just not right.
Even an email to us to understand it and to
Yeah.
help us relay to you where these are coming
Mhm.
from, and you can help us think about what the decision
That's
we want to make. Yeah,
such a
absolutely.
great point, right?
Yeah.
Like that we need communicate. Like if we are going to be in a position of making hard decisions, we need communication with the community to help inform what those are. And Facebook is not like a reliable source of information for that purpose.
I know I do appreciate it when community members reach out to me to ask me to explain things to them, because it gives an opportunity to share some information and get some reaction to it. And so, yeah, so certainly in this process, it's hard to develop a budget in a vacuum. You know there's real dollars and real impacts on local taxpayers, but what is that point where enough is enough? And I think that's what we're trying to gauge.
And it really, like for me, like when we had that joint session, there was a counselor that was talking about like
Yeah.
people on the margins, right?
Yep.
Like that's like that aren't even on Facebook, right? That are like too busy trying to hold it together. That like that's really where my concern lies here, right? Not like I'm gonna be able to afford my increase, right? But there's people out there that are gonna be making really hard choices.
Unfortunately, we have to talk
Shit,
about
Dad.
the budget, which again is a proposed fairly
Right.
significant increase. It's as low as we can get it without losing.
If I could just
Yeah,
say
please.
a couple of thoughts to set the table, and then Janet can talk about the individual sheets. Just to refresh your memory, obviously we've had 2 budget workshops reviewing a PowerPoint where we gave you lots and lots of narrative in terms of what we were doing. You know, use those workshops to kind of glean what the will of the board was and make some adjustments. Obviously, what we're putting in front of you is our best work to this point. One of the things that we don't have for you yet, because literally this was work based upon the workshop on last Thursday, we are almost ready with a draft of the budget narrative, which we will get to you hopefully by the end of next week to give you, you know, the weekend and all of next week to look it over. Remember, on November 16th, the next board meeting, ideally that would be when we want to be ready to pull the trigger, if you will, and make a decision on what the proposed budget is going to look like, because obviously we then have to shift to getting ready to share this with the budget committee right after Thanksgiving. So what
And
you
that being said, the narrative is not going to change the numbers.
correct.
It's strictly a different way to present it to the community.
It's to
so.
explain it. It's to
Right.
explain the numbers,
Yeah.
yeah. So what you have in front of you, and Jen will go through them, are, if you just, from a board perspective, and it's actually it's in the backup materials from the October 17th workshop that we had, is the PowerPoint. And these are basically replacement slides based upon the changes we've made as a result of the workshop. So with that said,
Right.
Janet.
Right. So when we originally presented the budget, we presented it to you saying that we had started with a goal of coming in between 4, maybe up to 5, and it was just over 5. So we had our second workshop just to refresh, and we talked about some ways that we could get below and get back into that range. We talked about some options. The board recommended that for now there were 2 things that we looked at. We have removed those things that they talked about from this budget, bringing the 5.1 down to a 4.8. So in the packet that we have, the cover sheet is basically showing you that summary, and then behind it are all the individual reports by department and or school, depending on which it is, with showing those numbers. And underneath each chart, you'll find another little table that kind of explains the significant variances in there to talk about what the differences were that made it go up or down. We didn't talk about every single variance, but we tried to identify the bigger ones that people would focus in on. So that's basically that sheet. And then we have, do you have the other chart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a chart you should have, you will remember, and it will show up in the budget narrative, but I think it does a nice job of just summarizing where we're at right now. And Janet's just going to kind of walk you through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it?
Yep. Let me get to my right page here. Yep. So we've presented this for several years now, and what we try to do, our goal with this particular chart, is to explain to the board and the community, saying, obviously prices go up every year. If we were to do nothing from a service level, to make no changes in service, no increases, improvements, just flat line and carry it forward 1 year, we would call that our level funding amount. Anything that we do that's new, if we introduce a program, if we cut a position, if we add a position, anything like that, we would call that as something new that was not in the prior budget. So as you can see on the first chart of the pages that I gave you, the overall budgetary increase is just over $1.2 million this year from what it was last year. Of that $1.2 million, over $1 million of it is just level funding, just moving the ball forward with salary increases that are negotiated as part of the CBA, increases in health insurance, increases in costs of things that we need to run our schools. Of that amount, less than $250,000 of it corresponds to something that we would consider new. And that new piece is made up of any staffing shifts, and we have made some reductions. We've had to take several formerly grant-funded positions in, so it's the kind of the sum total of the ups and the downs. But to put it in kind of a concise way of thinking about it, that $250,000 is really kind of the overall cost of the capital improvement plan increases that we made, and the two counseling program positions that we've really added. And those were goals that this board had to maintain and wanted us to kind of bring in, but that's really what if you look at it, that's pretty much what that $250,000 new cost amounts to. So, and again, we just gave you the chart, and it bothers me it's not centered, but but
it was so
Room
good. I
for
wanted to share
room for expansion.
But it will be centered in the budget report, and it will have a narrative to accompany it. But we did just want to kind of preface our, the report with that information for you tonight.
Right. So I just think it's really because one of the things as we go back to the conversation about rate setting and stuff, and we know that somewhere down the line, when rates are set, that's where the taxpayers really experience the real impact. One of the things that's hard for us to do at this point in the process is to say, okay, what are the variables that we are controlling and are changing? And I think this chart does a nice job of giving us that. So if you think about it in terms of the total operating budget, the 250 or 249, 297 to be specific, that is the new money is less than a 1% of the budget. It's probably like 0.923, something like that. So that's what we have rolled in that is new. Everything else is, I guess you could argue, maintenance of things. And frankly, we will give you a more detailed staffing analysis, but we have made quite a few adjustments in staffing in order to get us there too. So ultimately, we're reducing total staffing by 2.44 FTEs across the system with all of this coming into play and rolling in those two grant-funded mental health positions. So in the end, we are reducing overall staffing by 1.1%. So I think and when I say that, it's in all categories, from custodial, paraprofessionals, everywhere. That's basically what's happening. Some of it has happened because we've been creative in trying to develop contracts for some of our support staff. So for example, one of the things we realized working with our office assistants at the two buildings is they valued flexibility in the summer more than they valued compensation. So basically we were able to work their contracts to reduce their contracts by 0.08 per person to give them more of that flexibility of time, but it actually reduced the cost
by
in
a
our
quarter
system.
FTE.
And they're happy, we're happy, life is good. And then, of course, the other positions which we've talked about, the shop position, which clearly we talked about at the workshop, the reduction of Mandarin,
We've culled a few vacancies. We had a vacancy for a couple of years now for a part-time speech person we haven't been able to fill. We had some lunch monitor positions that we really haven't been able to capitalize on. So we tried to go through very carefully and look at the places where we might be able to save or reallocate resource rather towards the places that we really feel that the need is right now.
And go ahead. I was going to say, for the community's sake, and we are not talking about reductions in force ripping at all.
No,
That's not even on the
absolutely
table.
not.
But I bring that up because if we wanted to try to keep the same budget as last year, most of it is the staffing and around 800,000. So if you assumed $100,000 per person, you'd have to get rid of 8 staff members. Like, can you imagine the impact that would have on our staff, our school rather?
It's not
That-
$100,000 per person, because the salary's 481. It's the benefits.
Well, the benefits, I'm combining it.
Right,
I'm
right.
The combined cost is about,
Yeah.
I'm just making the assumption of 100,000.
Yeah.
It's probably not exactly correct, because it depends on what the position is,
Yeah.
you know, how long they've been here, et cetera. But you're talking, what, 6 to 9 or 10 people you'd have to reduce, so I just rounded it to 8.
Yeah.
That'd be a huge impact on people's classrooms and,
Well,
Right.
we would be like abrogating a responsibility to the district if we just willy-nilly said cut 8 positions, right? There's no
Oh,
like, to be
100%.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there would like
Yeah.
absolutely, right? Like we couldn't do that, right?
There's no
like,
way,
that's-
yeah.
I do think that with the vision of the graduate provides this opportunity to look structurally as to how we're providing the education thoughtfully over time, which
Yes.
we're like looking at. It does. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? This makes me consider next time, and I wasn't here when it happened, right? Someone's like, we can get a grant position. Like there is a third order effect of that at some point you're either going to have to let someone go, which we get used to the type of services that get provided when we pull a grant position in, or we're going to have to absorb that cost.
So
Some-
I
it would-
voted for the grant position, and with the knowledge that we would probably have to let it go, the hope was that the mental health of the students after the pandemic wouldn't be where it is now, and we would be able to comfortably let that position go when I voted for it.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're there. I think we have to. And maybe next year we can think about
See,
reducing
but
it the
now
year
man,
after.
we got a staff member, which is significantly different than
Right.
saying we're not going to bring a grant position into. I would like. It's far easier to be like, we're not going to bring a grant position on, which is hard. I get it, right? Than it is to be like, we're reducing someone that's on the staff.
But what do you do about the effect that has on the mental health?
Oh, I'm not
Like,
saying it's
in
the
that
right thing to
particular
do.
position.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying- I'm
it's
just saying that like long term for me.
Yeah.
If I were sitting on the board, which who knows if like anyone would want to vote for me again, but the in a
I'd
grant
vote.
position-
I'd vote for you again.
would,
Thanks.
I would.
Yeah, I got 2 votes.
Great.
My man, right here. I guess I suppose like in like the quest for grant money that you are really like very gifted at. Like for me, it'd be far better if we could find grant money for things rather than people, because that
Yeah.
creates like a very challenging situation down the road.
Yeah.
I'd rather we said if it's a position we need, we're going to invest in it.
Yep.
than-
Yeah.
I
One of the
get
things,
your point.
one of the things I would like to say about our strategy, certainly in the year and a half that I've been here, has been every time a position comes open, we have a very detailed conversation about what is the purpose of this position? Is this position necessary? Obviously, if it is as constituted, you replace it. However, we need to be open to the idea that as opportunities present themselves that we're ready to take advantage of. There's no question culturally, if you get into this sort of slash and burn sort of approach, like I'm just going to get to a number, you create an environment where you harm your culture, you harm your school culture. It's far better to make changes, know what you're trying to accomplish, and retool as opportunities present themselves. Over the last 2 years, between the 23-24 budget and the proposed 24-25, we've reduced by a total of 10 positions between those 2 budgets, okay? You have not seen people losing jobs. That hasn't been the case at all. It's been, we have seen an opportunity and said, oh, wait a minute, that's not what we need now. We need something different. Or we don't need that position anymore. Let's not fill it. I mean, I'd be missing an opportunity if I didn't note that Jenna has lived that this year. We made a very conscious decision to not fill a position in her office for the purpose of giving us the opportunity to really get a good sense of where we are, and it allowed it saved some money in the short term. It allowed us to hire a consultant to kind of work with us. And yes, we're still working that problem, but that is what we're doing. And I think when you heard from Andy at the workshop, I mean, clearly he's very aware that we need to start retooling and rethinking what the high school experience is. And I think what we have to do is take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. And so certainly in a little bit we'll talk about the possibility of a retirement incentive, but it's a much better place to be, to say, okay, we're making adjustments because people are voluntarily making decisions and we're retooling as we go, versus, okay, we've got to, as you noted, Gary, like take $800,000 out. That would be a very harsh thing to do. So anyway, I just want everybody to know that's the philosophy we've approached it with, and we're very open and reflective, and if it's needed, we do it, but if it's not, we say, okay, that's just not going to be a position we're going to go forward with.
So, and like, I totally understand, and I respect that, right? Because the culture, like, you break the culture, it'll take you way longer to bring culture back than the benefit of whatever dollar on the tax rate, right? That narrative there, though, that you just described, I'm going to guess the average person in this community has no idea that, like, it's 10 position reduction, right? Like, and I don't sit in the budget committee. I don't know what the like general tone and tenor of that is today, but like I could see a deliberative session having that information like built into a narrative might be helpful for people to be like, okay, there's responsibility at the helm here, that it is not just spend, because there will be a narrative that's built of like, just looking at the numbers here over the last, like, from expended in 2021 to now, that like people will make a narrative up, and having a narrative like that as part of our, like, I think might be helpful.
You're 100% right. I just don't think the deliberative sessions alone is going to get that message.
Well, yeah,
out.
no, I know, but like, I'm assuming
Right?
if people come with pitchforks, that's where they're
Oh, yeah, sure, if they do. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know, I was going to say something. I was on that budget too that voted for these two positions grant funded. In retrospect, I'm glad we have them. I think they're a good tool. But where I'm disappointed at what I've done for the past few years is, you know, 2 superintendents ago, the way of saving money was cutting positions and putting teachers on VLABs, or putting students on VLABs. And then we went the other direction as well, let's add more teachers and add more classes. There was never this whole concerted idea, like, what's the big picture? How are we going to offer what we want our students to have in a small district? And I feel really good about what Andy's saying, what Todd's saying, about we really need to look how everything can complement each other so we can afford the stuff we want to offer our students. That's where I'm disappointed because I didn't ask that before.
And I wholeheartedly agree. I think we are the team here, like, is like, and your team really is what I'm talking like is top notch. And I guess I bring all of this up for like, one, for the people on the margin, and two, I don't want to I think there's a positive direction, and if like the pitchforks start coming out, we could see like the apple cart get upset and things start going all wonky donkey on us, and I don't think that's what anyone wants, especially for the children.
I mean, speaking of the people on the margin, it's beyond our purview, unfortunately, but there should be some kind of a tax abatement for people of certain.
There is. They can apply. There is
in the town.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome! That's great. I wasn't aware of that.
We should.
Yeah.
So, any questions on, like I said, you will be getting or Todd mentioned, I think it was, you will be getting the budget narrative sooner rather than later. And these charts, as they are, will appear in there. But does anyone have any questions tonight about the charts or the numbers or?
Sorry to drag this out on you.
No. That's what we do. This is how we get it done.
'Tis the season.
Okay. Any questions for me? All right.
Thank
Great
you so
job,
much
Jan.
for
Thank you
all
so
your
much.
hard work,
Jan.
you and the department.
Can I say one more thing to
Please.
this group, though? Just because you meant, like, I in no way meant to say, like, the people who voted for the grant position should not have voted
I
that
didn't
way.
take it
I
that
don't
way.
think-
Not at all.
okay.
Didn't take it that way
I
at
just
all.
wanted-
Yeah.
No, not at
I
all.
probably would have voted for it too had I been sitting on this.
Yeah, no.
And the thought, I don't know about everybody else, but so some of the people's thought was, yeah, we will absorb this later, and let's just take the grant money while we can.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I don't think that was mine, but I don't know. But no, no offense taken, certainly. All right. Sorry, I guess I need to get back to work here. Moving right along, we have a presentation from Todd on a retirement incentive program, a one-time retirement
Yes.
incentive program.
So first of all, I want to apologize that I didn't get to this to you ahead of time, but I did tell you last Thursday when we discussed it at the workshop that I had some work to do, and it was this morning that I was dotting my final I's and crossing my final T's. So normally I'd want to put this in front of you in the backup. So again, I apologize for that. That being said, in order to, if we are going to do this, we need to act on it fast because the timeline to fully take advantage of a retirement incentive, if we're going to, is already very short. And since we've already got the deadline of we need to put our final proposed budget together by the 16th, this proposal involves sharing this with staff tomorrow with the idea that they would have until November 13th to say yes or no they want to do it. Let me just kind of run through it. It's not a terribly complex retirement incentive. I mean, basically what it comes down to is this. First of all, just a quick summary of what is already in the teacher contract. The teacher contract already has language about severance packages, okay? So the way it works is a Newmarket professional can, when they're ready to retire, choose to take their severance payout over a 3-year period, a 2-year period, or a 1-year period. In other words, what that means is they can say, they can let us know by October 31, I'm retiring this next spring, and when they retire, we would then be obligated to pay them whatever they have earned. Basically, the way it works in the contract is teachers get up to 24 years, between 15 and 24 years, it's calculated at $600 per year of service. Once you hit 25 years, it goes up to $900. So teachers are entitled to that, and you can choose that payout to be 1, 2, or 3 years. So that's a little bit of a variable that you know of. So when you see in this incentive where it makes reference to 3 or 2, that's the way the contract references it. So it is funky, and I freely will admit that, but that's the way the contract is written, and so that's what we're navigating. So basically what we're talking about doing here is to incentivize, because the contract says you have to tell us by October 31 you're going to retire, but you don't have to officially tell us for sure you're going to until April 1st. By doing it that way, there's no way we can account for it in our budget. So this incentive is to simply get people who are on the fence to commit with enough time so we can know that that's going to happen. And how do we do that? By paying them $10,000 if they choose to fully commit to retirement by November 13th. Okay? Now, the way it would work in terms of payout, clearly this proposal says that the $10,000 would be paid within 30 days of your separation date, which would be June 30th. So we could pay it either out of the end of the year fund balance if we have it there, or if we're thinking when we don't want to do that, we can pay it out of the next year. But it has to be paid within that 30-day window. In the contract, there is language that says the severance payment has to be paid by the end of September. So you have basically it's 120 days from time of separation that it can be paid out. So what would happen is the severance is actually the people who had already submitted, it's already in the operating budget in that 4.8%. The cost of people who put in there, that severance is sitting there. It's already there. So that's not an additional cost. The only additional cost in severance in this would be if somebody who has not submitted sees the proposal and says, I want to consider it. Now, one of the things I did explain at the workshop was one of the things to capitalize on retirements, you have to be able to say, okay, what do we need? And if the people who you need the most are the ones retiring, you have to fill those positions, so you can't necessarily capitalize on it. So there are a few subject areas, particularly at the junior, senior high, where there is real potential. If somebody chose to retire, we could reduce staff without having to have any impact on offerings. So we're extending the deadline from October 31 to November 13. So people can, everybody who would be retirement eligible could submit, okay? Doing the quick math, I don't believe there are that many people who are actually retirement eligible based on how we've defined it. To be eligible, we're saying 15 years of service in Newmarket, and to be within a year of full retirement age by the New Hampshire retirement system, which is 60. So we don't have an enormous number of people in that category. However, there are some. And so the idea would be this would go out with your approval. This would be an offer that would go out tomorrow, and then people would have 10 days to fill out the paperwork. In order to take advantage of it, they'd have to fill out the application form that is included in your packet, and then submit a letter that states that they are retiring for June of this coming year, and they're committing to that. And then obviously we would then take those applications, and at our next board meeting, it would be up to you to decide how many you want to entertain. It would allow me to make recommendations to you about which ones we can entertain. There is a couple of provisions in here that gives us some flexibility. So for example, if somebody submits that's an area that we absolutely want to capitalize on, they move to the top of the list. If we want to move them to the top of the list, it doesn't prevent us from doing that. So with that said, questions? Dan?
This isn't so much a question. This is just something that we don't explain often enough and probably should do better. So this doesn't add anything to taxation burden. I mean, the money we would spend on this would be money that has already been raised through taxation and will almost certainly save the taxpayers' money in the long run, because we are either reducing staffing in an appropriate and responsible way, or taking a higher paid, more tenured person and replacing them with somebody new coming into the system. So, just to be anticipating a possible reaction of someone saying, well, there's another $10,000 out the window. No, this isn't another $10,000 of taxation burden. This saves you in the long run.
Yeah, the logic, just to be clear what the logic is, I mean, when you have a teacher that's on that retirement eligible level, they're at the top of the pay scale. And when you take like a teacher at the top end of the pay scale, you combine that with their salary and all the benefit costs, you're talking $120,000 to $130,000 per employee at that point. Even if you have a retirement and you believe you need the position and you hire somebody, but just hire somebody at the lower end of the scale, you can save $30,000 to $40,000 per position without having to do anything different. But obviously the real savings is if you have positions that you know you don't need to fill, that's, dollar for dollar.
And that's really what we're up. We're
That's
not out
really
for,
what we're after.
We're not. Our goal is not to get younger people we can pay
No,
less,
absolutely not.
'cause,
No,
yeah,
I'm
we
just
are
saying
out,
that it gives us that flexibility.
yeah.
Good. So like, it's coming to us to approve. Well, I mean this now, but like next week, the next 2 weeks.
So what I would
That-
need tonight, I'd need
This
you to
needs
approve my
approval, right.
offering it,
This tonight.
and then you'd need to approve the actual
Right.
incentives the next time.
Would we have the math at that point as to like, okay, here's where we would replace probably, here's where we wouldn't, and like here's generally what we think.
Well, yeah, that's the variable that we.
You don't know it now, but like.
So right
next
now,
week-
In 2 weeks,
In
will
2
you
weeks, though.
know enough to be
Well,
able to estimate.
I will be able. Right, they have to let us know by the 13th, and we will know if the positions and the people who have submitted align with positions that we feel we can
Okay.
restructure or eliminate, then yes. But what is unknowable right now is beyond the 6 who have already submitted paperwork,
of course.
who are the other people, and what could be capitalized on.
What, so, are there any concerns about the cultural impact or climate impact in the buildings of like being like, wait, this is only 1 year, and like next year people being like, oh, you did that thing last year. Like, is there any concern about second, third, fourth order effects of this?
I mean, I just to be clear, I did fully vet this with union leadership as well as the UNISERV director, and we've talked this all the way through. I mean, the general reaction from staff or from the union has been, I can't imagine why anybody would be against offering people $10,000 to retire. It's a benefit that you can choose to take. It's nobody's requiring of you. I mean, certainly, I did at great lengths try to make sure it was clear this was a one-time thing, so that people wouldn't think this is just going to get rolled in and every year we do it. Because if you do it that way, it's no longer an incentive. It's just
Right.
you wait until it's your time to go, and then you just expect to capitalize on it. And that's what the severance package is. The severance package is that every year you expect that. The incentive is designed to entice people to commit earlier. And again, and this is something I will bring up when we get into negotiations, but I think the idea of having an April 1st date that you officially tell us, it does tie our hands in terms of what we can do. And this is to try to give us that. So as far as do I think culturally it'll have any impact, I mean, I can't, I mean, I'm sure there will be some people say that you're trying to get rid of us. I mean, there may be some of that. I would tell you, I have had more than a handful of veteran staff say things to me like, you know, if you did this, I would be.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about a year from now. People being like, hey, what about that thing they got last year? Right? Like this, like,
It's
and
gonna
we could
happen.
say, I know it's going to happen, right? That's
Right.
my concern, is that once you do something once, people think you do it forever. And
Well, yep.
like, and people who we would want, like, not we don't want these people to stay around, right? But like, what culture does that, what climate does that create in buildings? If you got people like, well, I'm supposed to be getting 10 more thousand because I said I'm going to retire by November of 2024.
I think it depends on the kind of fiscal environment we should find ourselves in next year, and what we
Yeah.
need to, and what we need to know when we need to know it. If we can wait till April, I think the board should probably.
It's just,
but it's
it's just as
it's gonna.
stemming off of our last conversation around the grant, like, hey, like things we might not have considered at that time. Like, are there ways this might end up backfiring on us in terms of?
I guarantee they're gonna.
Well, I think
do well next
there's
year.
always the fear, and it's real, because actually my previous district has done this multiple times, and it has led to significant turnover in the district. The fear is that you have a lot of experience and expertise going out the door, and you can't deny that. You know, a person who's spent 30 plus years honing their craft, there's no question they're leaving is a loss of experience, but then you have to counterbalance that with people that arrive with a vision that aligns with what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
enthusiasm, willingness to learn, all of those kind of things. And I think when we start talking about developing the kind of school culture and vision that we have, some of it is going to be just the right people in the right roles to take some things and make them happen. And that doesn't necessarily correlate in any way to how much experience you have. It's just a willingness to take on some challenging things. So yeah, there will no doubt there will be people who might not perceive this in the intent that it is, but I see it as a tool to frankly get people to tell us for sure what their intentions are, so we can then make decisions.
And I support it. Like,
Yep.
it's more of like a, and I don't think the challenge is today, this week. I'm worried about November 2024.
And I think if we can, the board should probably reset the precedent of not doing it. But we may find ourselves in the situation we find ourselves in now.
Well, I do think it's important to note that if you just look at the demographics of our staff, as I've told you, about 60% of our staff is new within the last 5 years. So, and we're not that large of a district. So we're not talking about hundreds of people here. We're talking about a pool of people that is relatively small, that would be eligible to take advantage of this. And then particularly when you tap it into 15 years of experience in Newmarket, it means people who have committed to us. And it's, to some extent, it's a reward for a career well served.
Are there very many people that like have like 14 years experience in Newmarket or 2 years away from retirement?
to be very honest, I haven't done that calculation recently. I mean, we actually do track that, and in fact, Patty Banfield definitely can easily tell me that.
It's not fair.
I mean, I'm sure there's a small number of people that might be in that window.
And then my other question, is there anything preventing a teacher from taking this and then turning around and come back and do it too?
Well, once you've taken, you have to file for New Hampshire retirement.
Okay.
And so once you file for New Hampshire retirement, you're limited by the rules of New Hampshire retirement. There is a provision that would allow us to hire back an employee under the limits that New Hampshire retirement requires.
That's number 8, right? Just maybe hired
Oh, okay.
on a part-time basis.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move into discussions. Does anyone have any correspondence they've received?
Like, you want to read some Facebook posts?
Yeah, I was gonna say like about the budget, about
Not sent directly to me.
Okay.
Just to all of us.
Open the floor, public comment at 7:07. Not seeing anyone from the public. Close the floor at 7:07. Next up, we have some minutes. Seek a motion to approve the October 19th, 2023 public and non-public minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Amy. Are there any discussions?
Yeah.
I have a couple.
I mean, yeah, this first one, I absolutely, my mistake, my first time running a school board meeting. Gary's absence was known in advance and excused, and the
It was.
meetings don't
Thank
reflect
you.
that, so
Thank you very much.
we should amend them to reflect that we knew in advance.
And made as a quirk of minutes that I wasn't physically there, but was I present in the meeting? It has me not present in the meeting, and then under it says that it has the motion to allow me to
in the
speak.
public,
Say again?
in the public part?
Public, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think you should be considered present.
Yeah.
right? Like even
If
though
you were
like,
present for the meeting, if you're not present. Yeah.
I
Or you
participated
weren't
the
present
meeting.
in person, but you
Yeah.
were present.
Yes.
I would agree.
'Cause it's just weird. Like mentioned to me in the minutes, but it just says I'm not present.
But the motion 3-0 is right. And then a non-public, I noticed that Phil, although he made the motion, either didn't vote by roll call vote aye, or it was left out. I suspect it was the latter.
Left out.
Yeah, it was left out.
So we need to add Phil aye. Any other corrections? All right, I seek a motion to accept,
You already have
have a motion
Yep.
on the floor, sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Four aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Aye. Gary Swanson abstains. All right, who has the manifest?
I do. I move to approve the manifest, total of $767,095.71.
Motion by Phil, second by Andrew. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. We have a extremely generous donation from a anonymous donor who'd like to give $2,000 for physical education enrichment, and which will be designated for the garden area, which is amazing. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, or Ms.
Well, it's 2,000 for PE, and another 2,000.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's
$4,000.
It's a total of $4,000.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God!
Holy.
Thank you very much.
Wow,
Yes.
that's even more amazing. Wow.
Hope
thank
they're
you.
watching the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. All right, we have a motion on that?
So
Take a motion. Thanks, Andrew.
Second.
Andrew, second by,
So we have to do this because the amount.
Right.
it's
so
over
over
1,000,
50.
correct, yep. Any discussion? Other than thank you so very, very, very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Seek a motion to approve the retirement incentives as presented this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Phil, second by Amy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. I do not believe we have any personnel.
Yeah, we have
Oh,
some
we
coaches.
do. I'm sorry, we do have coach nominations.
Yeah, so there's one new coach. They're all the winter coaches. 8 of them are returning, and 1 is a new coach. The new coach is the JV boys basketball, Alexander Cheek.
Is there just a clarification? Isn't the varsity basketball? I mean, the varsity basketball coach has coached in Newmarket before, but that was
5 or 6 years ago,
a
he
very
coached
long
here, so
time ago.
technically he,
Yeah. So yeah, see, he's returning. So yeah,
Okay.
you're right.
as an assistant, yeah.
And then we also might have, I remember Jamie introducing both a varsity cheer coach as well as a middle school cheer coach who I don't see on here.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if,
No, one was spirit, right? One was varsity.
We have,
One was cheerleading, and one was.
I know there were 2 individuals. That's
I
what I
thought-
recall from the meeting.
I will
Yeah.
talk with Jamie to see if there's anybody missed.
Okay.
And did Mickey coach last year? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great. So you still had hiring, right? So we're just accepting your.
Well, no,
Sure.
you approved for me to do it over the summer. So at this point, you are.
Oh, I
you-
thought we
you have
continued. Okay.
resumed-
Oh, okay.
You have resumed your role up to
All right. I'd seek a motion to approve the hiring of the coach nominees.
So moved.
second.
David Smith and Amy Tilton. Any discussion?
Just thank you very much for all the, again, we have community volunteers who don't work in the school district stepping in to make these programs possible. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And a bunch of staff who stay after school and make those programs possible. So,
Yes.
any, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we do not have a non-public. However, we will have a non-meeting following this, folks. Sorry.
Yeah, I hope so.
Can't get away. At 7:13, I'd seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Phil,
Second.
by Amy. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sean, for sticking it out.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.